Hi everyone, this is the 152nd video of the ACT Math Practice Problem series, and here we have an interesting problem from coordinate geometry. As I always recommend, before seeing the solution, you can pause the video and give it a try yourself, and after that of course you want to match with my solution. So let's get started. Here the question says, two straight lines are represented by the equations 2 times x plus 3 times y equals 5 and 3 times x minus 2 times y equals 1. Choose the correct statement, and 5 statements have been provided. We have to pick the correct one. From the answer options, you can see that the question is primarily focused on the angle of intersection of the two straight lines whose equations have been provided. So we have to try and find out what is their angle of intersection. We know that the angle of intersection between two straight lines is like this. If theta is the angle of intersection, then theta is equal to tan inverse of absolute value of m sub 1 minus m sub 2 over 1 plus m sub 1 times m sub 2. Now what is m sub 1? Well, that's the slope of the first straight line, and what is m sub 2? That is the slope of the second straight line. Now from each of the equations, let's try to convert them into y equals mx plus c form so that we can easily find their slope, right? So from the first equation, can we convert the first equation like this? After converting the first equation into y equals mx plus c form, we can clearly see that the slope of the first straight line is negative 2/3. Similarly, let's convert the second equation into this form, and from the second equation we can see that the slope is positive 3/2. And if we substitute these values in our formula there for theta, what we get? We're going to get something like this. And if we simplify this a little further, we're going to get something like this. And let's simplify a little further, and that would be tan inverse of negative 13/6 over 1 minus 1. And that's a problem right there. In the denominator, you see that is 1 minus 1, that is 0. Now what does that mean? Well, the denominator actually was something like this. So let me write it down. It was 1 plus m sub 1 times m sub 2. And now we are seeing that this quantity is actually 0. So from here, can we say that m sub 1 times m sub 2 is equal to negative 1? And when does that happen? Well, that happens when the two straight lines are perpendicular to each other. That is when the product of their slope is equal to negative 1. And in this case, because we are getting m sub 1 times m sub 2 equals negative 1, that means the two straight lines are perpendicular to each other. And we can prove it like this also. So if you see here, our m sub 1 is actually negative 2/3 times positive 3/2. And you can clearly see that this is equal to negative 1. Why? Because this 2 and 2, they will cancel each other, converting them to 1, and then the 3 and the 3, they will also cancel each other. So that will be equal to negative 1. So the product of the slopes of the two straight lines is equal to negative 1. That means they are perpendicular to each other. And you can express the value of theta like this. It would be equal to tan inverse infinity division by 0, that is approaching infinity. So we can say this is tan inverse infinity, and that is when we can say that theta must be 90 degree. You can say 90 degree or pi/2. That means the angle of intersection is actually 90 degree. That means the two straight lines are perpendicular to each other. Now, if you look at our answer options, option K would be the correct option. That is where it says they are perpendicular to each other. So option K would be the correct option. For this type of question, before going into detailed calculation of theta, you can quickly check whether they are parallel or perpendicular. Now, how can you check that? Well, you convert the equations into y equals mx plus c form like exactly how I did, and then you take a look at their slopes. If the slopes appear to be equal, then they are parallel to each other. If the product of the slopes appear to be equal to negative 1, then they are perpendicular to each other. Now, if none of those two cases are true, then of course we have to go into the detailed calculation of theta, and we have to find out what is the angle of intersection that way. I hope everything made sense. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.